Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Woo! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, rumors, and discussion. And this week, no news is good news. Or is it? We're going to delve into the conflicting rumors surrounding the new Jedi Order movie starring Daisy Ridley. What's going on? What isn't going on? We'll let you know what we know. Plus, we're going to delve into a new rumor about another animated series that may be in the works that's very similar to a current animated series from a different franchise. Very rumor heavy week this week. I heard a rumor. Old school fans, you know what I'm talking about. And a classic edition of Ask the SWU is coming up this week. We're going to answer some more of your questions, all that, and so much more here tonight on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. First, though, introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld. It's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? Great to be back. And first off, I got a question for you guys. Why didn't any of Luke Skywalker's marriages last?
Oh no.
This is a good question.
Why?
I'm very excited.
He always followed Obi-Wan's advice. Use divorce, Luke.
Oh, jeez.
Well done,
You
Ben.
can play this game.
Well done.
That's good. That's good stuff.
Well done.
By the way, I found that after like Googling for like 10 seconds of Star Wars dad jokes. I was like, first article, scroll down, 2 down. No, that was not no, that's the great one. That's good. That's it.
Was the first joke you came across, was it like horribly inappropriate? You're like, I can't bring that to our family friendly show.
No, there was something about Leia's hair, and it was she had it so low or something. There was a bad one in there. Bad one.
Man, that is rough. That is rough. Well done.
Use
Ben.
divorce.
Use divorce. Excellent work. Excellent work. That other voice you're hearing from the Raeside, it's Hannah Raeside.
G'day there. Great to be back for another week of banter and pointless drama. It's great to be a Star Wars fan. Let's get into it.
Yeah, boy, that does sum up Star Wars.
Yep, that's about it.
Fandom.
That's about it.
Banter and pointless drama. Well, what more could you possibly ask for?
It's
Dad jokes, apparently. Dad jokes. That's what you get. That's what you get when you show up to this.
Cream of the crop.
Yeah,
crop content.
Yeah, when you come to this show, you're not gonna get like horrible things being said about people. You're just gonna get the worst jokes you've ever heard that are also the best jokes you've ever heard, right? Yeah. Use divorce, Luke.
Nice.
I like it. Yeah.
Use
Obi-Wan.
divorce.
Yeah, Obi-Wan famously divorced many times. That we will learn about in the upcoming second season of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's what.
Oh,
that's
please
why
don't tempt me.
We're going to talk about rumors about Rey and the Rey movie. One of my favorite early Force Awakens rumors, and this is like before we knew it was called The Force Awakens, back when we were just doing episode 7 rumors, was that Rey was a Kenobi, because I loved the idea that Obi-Wan had like a secret life that we'd never heard about. Yes. And that was something that was going to like factor into The Force Awakens and the subsequent movies, that like the characters would be discovering new things about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought that would have been really, really cool. Alas, they did not go that way. And, maybe for the best, maybe not. Only, That's a what if question if I ever heard one. That is a what if question.
I think we need a story involving divorce. We need a Star Wars divorce story. Star Wars a marriage story. Come on.
It has to be like Boba Fett and Garsa Whip. Like they got married.
Also, I'm just now realizing that's probably the plot of Andor season 2.
Yeah,
probably just Mon Mothma getting everything in the divorce.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for
now,
sure. Yeah.
We know in Force Awakens, Han and Leia are split up at the start of the movie.
That's a good point.
But did they ever like formally divorce? Like, did they have lawyers?
Oh, it's just like the separation. It was just like one of those things where
like,
he took the Falcon, she took the Rebellion, and they just split.
What's that movie with Steve Carell and Ryan Gosling? What's that movie? The divorce movie? Oh,
I don't know.
Don't worry.
Only divorce movie I think it was the one that Ben mentioned earlier, the one with Adam Driver.
Marriage Story.
Yeah.
You gotta have Ben Solo in that.
Ben
Come
Solo,
on.
yeah.
Maybe Black Widow and Kylo Ren got a divorce. I think maybe
that could happen in the Rey movie. We'll find out that Rey and the Force Ghost of Ben Solo got married in the 15 years between The Rise of Skywalker and New Jedi Order, and the movie's actually about the divorce, and that's why people are hearing rumors about it being delayed, because they're like, this cannot possibly be the story. It's so stupid, and yet here we are. That's what Stephen.
What a buzzkill though. What a buzzkill that we find out in the Rey Skywalker movie that yes, actually Finn and Poe did get married, but by the time of the movie they've been divorced.
Everyone, it's just a horrible. Just everyone's divorced.
Finally going to get some proper gay relationship, in proper on a movie, and they freaking divorced, man.
Divorce, a Star Wars story. That's not where I thought the opening of this show was going to go. Was definitely not where I thought it was going to go, even after Ben told that marvelous joke. But it can only go up from here. All right. If this is the sort of content you enjoy, make sure you subscribe to the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, subscribe to the Raeside, subscribe to Tales from Beyond the Galaxy. If you're already subscribed to this channel, you'll get Ion Cannon and Tractor Beam and all sorts of good content. So punch that subscribe button, Chewy. Also join the Discord. Post your favorite Star Wars dad joke in the Discord. I think we actually have more coming up later in the show, so that's exciting
on that front.
Yeah, and if you join the Discord, there's all sorts of fun stuff that goes on there, like movie nights and game nights, and just
we're gonna be watching Young Jedi Adventures forever, because we realized last minute, thanks to someone who mentioned it on this podcast, that we should be watching that first, and then we start getting into it and we're like, oh my god, there's so many episodes. And then Joel messaged me the other day, he's like, oh crap, they're dropping the rest of the season this week. Oh my god.
Are you doing one episode a week? Like, is that the plan?
No,
that's 25 weeks.
We're trying to do
I was gonna say, like,
4 episodes per session, but it's still a lot, guys.
And Young Jedi Adventures, like one episode, it's like a classic kids TV show. One episode is actually 2 stories. So like if you're like you're like 8 stories deep if just from just 1 week of that, and there's still so much to go.
Can I just say, Young Jedi Adventures, this was my first time watching it. Actually, not that this is a surprise, but like really great. Like the whole session of us just watching it was just a bunch of us adults going like, man, this show is really great, man.
Yeah.
No.
I've only watched a handful of episodes of it, but like they're well made. Like that's the thing. Like they're well made for preschoolers. I can't bring myself to sit there and watch 25 episodes of it, because I am not the target demographic, not being a preschooler or the parent of a preschooler. But it's quality. Like it's well made. I enjoy it for what it is.
I wonder who the story group is for Young Jedi Adventures. I wonder who, like, I want to see who's the crossover for those stories. Interesting.
I bet it's the actual story group, and they go from like an Andor meeting where they're like, yes, and we must explore the deep, dark themes of how rebellions are born out of tyranny, and then we have to teach kids how to share, and like it's just the same.
Yeah.
By the way, people have started posting Star Wars dad jokes in the live chat. Travis Mitchell here. What does Wicket use to listen to music? Walkman.
Oh,
and there's
well
so
done.
many people in the audience younger than us. And they're like, "What? What's that?"
Yeah. Yeah,
It's like an.
Even I'm only just on the cusp of knowing that joke.
You have to be on the internet long enough to get the millennial jokes, like to get those memes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God. All right. What did I plug everything? Oh no. Subscribe and review. Subscribe and review. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, all those places, and follow us on Threads, the most important social media service out there.
Thread it up, y'all.
Oh God, indeed. No, don't do that. Don't do that. All right, let's get into things. And we're starting with what Ben has labeled in our notes as a non-story in 2 parts. Part 1, this comes from worldofreal.com. It's a blog about movies. The title, upcoming Rey Star Wars movie delayed indefinitely. Posted on January 15th, 2024. And it says, the reporter says this: I've been told that Disney has delayed the film, quote unquote, indefinitely, which is why they surprised everyone last week and decided to announce The Mandalorian and Grogu as the next Star Wars movie. They just don't have confidence that New Jedi Order will be happening in the near future. The problem seems to reside in creative differences between screenwriter Stephen Knight and Lucasfilm. I'm told that a draft had originally been written for the film, but Lucasfilm gave him so many notes that he had to start from scratch. To make matters worse, there's the possibility that Knight may not be staying on board the project. His frustrations have grown, so he's put Star Wars on the back burner and is now focused on the screenplay for his Peaky Blinders movie, which is supposed to go into production this fall. The issue, blah blah. Then there's just some backstory about the earlier version of the script that was written by Damon Lindelof. So that was the first report. Then later on that same day, Gizmodo.com posts the headline, "No, Rey's Star Wars movie hasn't been delayed." Just a direct shot right back.
Well, that's whiplash, man. Whoa.
Yeah, here is what Gizmodo writes. You can take that latest Star Wars rumor and throw it in the Sarlacc pit. Earlier this week, rumors surfaced that the upcoming Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy Star Wars movie featuring the return of Daisy Ridley as Rey has been delayed indefinitely. The reason? Creative differences with the film's writer, Stephen Knight. Well, that's not true, according to Lucasfilm. A source at the company told IO9 that the report is inaccurate, and Knight continues to write and be a part of the process. In fact, the company is waiting on his latest draft as you read this. Now, you can certainly understand the confusion. The last week's announcement of the previously unannounced Mandalorian Grogu as the next Star Wars movie threw a wrench into everyone's assumption that the Rey New Jedi Order film would be the next one out. However, that news merely shifted things around and has been demonstrated with the film. And as has been demonstrated with this film and its numerous writers over the past few years, the company seems to just want to take its time to make sure it gets everything right. So, Ben, I'm going to go to you. What the hell is going on here?
It's the good old rumor mill. It's the good old thing. Like, okay. First of all, no disrespect to World of Real or whatever they're called. I genuinely, I've never heard of them before. So like, I don't know how good or bad they are at scooping, generally speaking. I know a lot of people do not like scoopers. They thumb their nose and like, oh, it's all BS. Like, nah, it's not. There's a lot of good scoopers out there. Then there's a lot of people. We know plenty of them personally. And I am very interested in a lot of these reports. And yeah, things are not as hunky-dory behind the scenes of Lucasfilm as Disney would want you to believe. Yes, if this had come from another site such as the Hollywood Reporter or Variety, I would have put stock in it. I would have said, okay, yeah, this is kind of par for the course for Lucasfilm. Again, behind the scenes drama, perhaps another movie going down in flames. But I think it's great that Lucasfilm kind of came up and said, no, not things. I wish they would do this more often, to be honest. I understand that they can't. I understand that there's so much junk on the internet reported by various people. And like, this wasn't like because we've seen this before, like with bigger sites, with a Variety, with a Hollywood Reporter going like, hey, this is this thing. And then you have another person say, well, no, that's not quite this. And you have this back and forth exchange. Like I said, World of Real, not a very big site, but they saw fit to say, no, this is not the case. And I'm glad that they did, because it really kind of shut this down, because yes, the usual suspects, they took it and they ran with it, as you could imagine. There's thumbnails. I've seen plenty of them. But yeah, it's good to hear this. It's good to know that, yeah, okay, this is still going strong. And, yes, it's not the next movie. I think we all got that from the Mandalorian Grogu announcement. It may not even be the second movie. But I still am confident that this movie is still things. And it's good to hear from, via Gizmodo, some actual news from Lucasfilm, people confirming this and saying yay or nay on some of these rumors, because yeah, they get out of hand sometimes.
Excuse me. Oh, well, crazy. Well, yeah, I agree, Ben. Gotta take over here. Yeah, it is so tricky with these, like the Star Wars news cycle is so interesting. Lucasfilm are very tight-lipped most of the time with what they release and let us know.
Right.
So a lot of the time it comes from leaks, and then only certain kind of sources of leaks are really reputable, but then people have their own opinions of different sources. Like, it just gets so quickly convoluted with where we get our news and information with Star Wars. But I totally agree. Like, the source is from something really, again, I'm not vetted with, like, I just don't know the source. I haven't really heard of them before. But yeah, when it's coming from somewhere like that, it's just, you just can't put money on it. And it was very fascinating to see the onslaught it brought, and just everyone talking, oh, it's gone, it's in the dump, people just really ran with it. But it's like, and it made me think. I had a funny thought to myself. I'm like, I could just tweet like anything and just be like, source, make up a name, like the anonymous, Geonosian source this, like. And it's like, you can just kind of say anything and say you sourced it somewhere, and people are like, oh, it's from a source. Oh, that must be real. So, yeah.
Oh, my people are telling me that this is blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And,
it's
it
like,
just sound important, doesn't it?
Who? Yeah. I want to have people there. Let's go. Yeah. How you going, Dom?
I'm alive. I'm alive.
You with us?
Barely. I suddenly started choking. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Like, I'm willing to believe that if we went back to Celebration last year and asked Kathleen Kennedy, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, everyone involved in this movie, where would you hope to be come January 2024? Wherever they are now is not where they hope to be. I'm willing to believe.
I agree with that. Yeah.
However, we forget that there was like 6 months there where no work could be done on the script. There was this massive strike. And so the plan to, have this movie be next likely was significantly pushed back because Steve Knight was just not working on it, just like all the other writers. And, Lucasfilm could give notes on a previous version of the script, but he was under no obligation to look at them, and probably was not allowed to look at them, and probably not allowed to do anything with them, even if he could look at them. So this movie, I think it's fair to say this movie is behind schedule if we take the schedule that was laid out back in April of last year. But that being said, that doesn't mean the movie is in trouble. It's just going through the sort of growing pains, the script pains that every movie goes through, and that it should have gone through last July or last August. And the reason that The Mandalorian Grogu happened and why it's the next movie is Favreau said at Celebration, the scripts for season 4 of The Mandalorian were done. He had written them. Now, they're Favreau scripts, so they were probably just one draft each, but they were done. They were written. And so I think it's easier to take 8 scripts that everyone agreed on, pull the best elements out of that, and go, here's a 2-hour movie, than it is to go back 6 months later to a project that you had been working on and basically pick up from scratch. And you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if Steve Knight basically felt he had to restart after getting a whole bunch of notes from Lucasfilm. But that's how these things work. That happens on most scripts. You know, studio notes are a thing for a reason. Sometimes they're good notes and sometimes they're stupid notes. Mark Hamill tells a great story about during the production of A New Hope that there were studio notes from 20th Century Fox that said things like, "Why is the Wookiee naked? Should the Wookiee wear pants? Maybe we should give the Wookiee some lederhosen."
It's a good question.
That's a good question, really.
Yeah. Why is Chewbacca walking around naked? So I'm not worried about this movie. Has it been delayed, quote unquote, from May of 2026 to December of 2026 or May of 2027? Maybe, probably. I think that's probably likely. Again, that's why we're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu. But I'm not super worried about it. Yeah, like I said, I think there might be a kernel of truth to that original report. The what was it called? World of Real report.
Right.
But it feels a bit blown out of proportion. And you know, IO9, Gizmodo, Jermaine Lucier, who wrote the story and spoke to the sources at Lucasfilm, those are that's a pretty reputable place to get your information from. So I tend to trust him, tend to trust this report, the second report. And yeah, you know, like Lucasfilm, again, they're not, the company isn't isn't commenting on the rumors. There wasn't a post on StarWars.com, but you know, the people in the know, people who are probably working on the movie, did sort of, you know, whisper to IO9, like, yeah, no, it's still happening. We're just still working on the script. We're working through the problems and smoothing out any issues we have with the script, as they do on every single movie. So
yeah, it's funny that people take problem with that, going, oh, you know, they didn't agree on it. They didn't agree on a draft or whatever. It's the same people that say, I mean, and to an extent, I kind of actually agree. You know, the unplannedness with the sequel trilogy, and you know, it was too rushed and those kinds of things. It's like, it's the same people saying that. It's like, well, if you're in the camp where you didn't like the sequel trilogy, you didn't like the writing of it, the storyline, and you say it's rushed and unplanned, would you not be on the side of, oh, thank God they're doing drafts and rewrites and they're working on it, and they're not just pushing ahead like a steam train, that they're actually taking the time to get the right words on the paper down to make this movie? You would think it should be that way, but people just aren't connecting that fact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like there's two things for me. It's like, for one, you know, yes, let's say, for example, Stephen Knight is walking out the door right now because he's done with Lucasfilm and all this kind of stuff, and he's tired of getting notes. And like, yes, that's not great news, but to say it's not unprecedented on any circumstance. Like, you remember, go back to those original things of Star Wars Episode 7 coming in 2015, written by Michael Arndt. And then he wasn't the last writer on that movie. Other people came in behind him, including Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan. And that just happens on these movies. And then also
Rogue One had about 5 or 6 writers on it.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's
Gary
like,
Whitta. Started with Gary Whitta. You had Chris Weitz come in, Christopher McQuarrie, Tony Gilroy, obviously, and there's a few others that I'm forgetting right now. But like, there were a lot of writers on that movie because they were trying to smooth out the issues, and that's a movie that they didn't smooth out the issues in until they had a first cut, and then they went in and wrote a whole bunch of new stuff and used that to fix the movie.
And I've heard Gary Whitta himself talk about how, as a writer, kind of from a misfortune kind of thing of just like, yeah, I wrote part of it, but then there's other stuff, and he's just like, oh, he gets compliments. Oh, I love Chirrut. Like, I didn't make Chirrut. That wasn't a character that I created. Someone else had it in later. And it's kind of unfortunate. Like, you know, these people are obviously artists. They want to write something and they want to put their vision on the screen, but that people take it and they run with it and they go to different directions with it. And it's unfortunate, but this is how these movies operate. Maybe you can argue too many cooks in the kitchen, but ultimately this is a rewrite until you actually get to think. And then to Hannah's point, like, ultimately, if they come out and say like, oh, things are not working, we can't get the story right, we can't, Stephen Knight's frustrated, and it's going to be delayed. I'm like, good, delay it. I don't want them to rush it out. I want them to take their time with it. If it means pushing Rey to the last movie that we get in order to get a good movie, I'm good with that. That's fine. Take as much time as you need, because we've gotten the Rush Star Wars movie. Cough, Rise of Skywalker, cough. We've gotten the Rush Star Wars movie. Okay, it's not great. Okay, we can do better than that.
Writing is rewriting, and there's a reason why they say you have to just write a first draft so that you can then go back and fix it in the second and third draft. I do think the plan is still for this to be the second movie. This may be reading too much into the announcement of the Mandalorian and Grogu, but there's that paragraph at the end of it where it says the Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including films helmed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni. I think that's the order they are planning on releasing those movies in. I think it's Mandalorian and Grogu. I think it's New Jedi Order. I think it's Dawn of the Jedi. And then I think it's Heir to the Empire. With, Ahsoka season 2 and Skeleton Crew and maybe some more Mando stuff on Disney Plus between Mando and Grogu and Heir to the Empire. Again, assuming that's what the Filoni film is called, because come on, of course it is. I will also throw in, I know a lot of the sort of doom and gloom about this movie comes from the usual sources. The grifters and the culture warriors and all of those people, and I don't really give what they have to say the time of day, but I also won't blame anyone for seeing this report and going, here we go again, and being concerned, because this, to be fair, we've had a dozen, 10, 8, enough versions of this story from World of Real that has turned out to be true over the last 7 years or 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, however long it's been since Rise of Skywalker. We've had enough versions of this story that I think people are feeling a little burned, and there'll be announcements with big fanfare, or there'll be, reports of this person directing and that person directing, or this person producing, Kevin Feige. And then a year or two later, it's like, oh yeah, they're off the project. That project's not happening. Remember the big Disney Investors Day of 2020, when they announced, the future slate of all Star Wars, and they announced a whole bunch of shows. And
so traumatized.
Yeah. And the final, the crowning jewel in all of that was the return to cinemas for Star Wars with Rogue Squadron, directed by Patty Jenkins. And it has been radio silence on that ever since then, apart from some reports that she had left the project, and then a confirmation from her that it had been reworked and was basically backburnered by everybody for the time being. So, there was that. There was the Game of Thrones guys. Who knows what's been going on with the Taika Waititi project, and everything else in between seems to just be kind of sitting there. The Rian Johnson trilogy, what's going on there? These things get announced with great fanfare and then are kind of allowed to fade into the background. And I think this movie, again, because they've gone as far as to announce that Daisy is attached, I think it has there's almost now a requirement that it get done. You can't take your star, your lead from the previous trilogy, one of the actors, one of the characters that you are betting the future on, and then cancel that movie. It'd be like if they said, oh, guess what? We're bringing back Harrison Ford. And then 6 months later, actually, Harrison's not coming back. You can't do that. So this movie is going to happen come hell or high water. It's just a matter of when.
Right.
Speaking of Daisy Ridley.
Yeah. She
was out there talking about this movie, although she didn't comment on the reports of its impending doom or not impending doom. But she did speak to Allociné, and she talked about how she came to be involved in this new movie. She said, quote, that was actually quite last minute. I was actually making my own film last year, and Kathy Kennedy said she wanted to have breakfast, and I thought we were just having breakfast. So there I was having my.
I wonder
breakfast.
what they had. What did they have?
You know what? I have
like granola.
I have an exclusive report. They went to IHOP because all
I
the
knew
best
it. I knew
Star
it.
Wars.
Where else would they go for
The best
breakfast?
Star Wars
At
events
IHOP.
happen at IHOP. Yes,
Those events happen
indeed.
at IHOP. So there's
And then they stopped off at the local supermarket afterwards and had a nice dessert of Oreos.
Yes. So anyways, Daisy continues. So there I was having my breakfast, and she goes, "Oh, by the way, we might do another one." And I'm like, okay. So I thought about it for a little bit, and once I knew what the story was and everything, I knew it was something I really wanted to do. I think it's a really fantastic exploration of the Star Wars world. It's a really cool way of taking the story in a bit of a different direction. Different direction. What do we think? What do we think she means by this? That she was, chowing down on her pancakes, and Kathy's describing this different direction. What could a different direction for the Rey movie be?
Well, a story thought. The only thing I can kind of really think for this, and I think this is just probably a lot of bias because it's probably what I want to see with this movie. I wonder if, obviously, the sequel trilogy. It was giant, big, horrible, galaxy-wide, 1,000 billion Star Destroyers and Palpatine, everything possible giant was involved. The ending was just all of the baddies ever and all of the goodies ever against each other in the sky. I wonder if maybe the different direction of this movie would be in terms of the intensity of the action and the storyline. So maybe perhaps this movie is a lot slower and focused on character. I would liken it to almost like kind of what the energy of Ahsoka was, where it was this slower, more pensive character kind of focus, character, having some sort of journey with other characters, even almost like a Phantom Menace energy where it's like things are slower. There's no giant, there's action. It's Star Wars. There's, there's action. There's conflict. It's a movie. But I don't think it's going to be this massive, massive thing. And maybe it's more of a character discovery journey that is kind of in the light of action adventure. That's my thought, maybe.
It's more solo than
that's a good one,
Rise of
actually.
Skywalker.
And that's honestly why I was going to bring up Solo. That's why I love that movie so much, is that you have that first group of Disney Star Wars movies that we have, and all of them seemingly were trying to one up each other in regards to there's three of them have planet killers, and some of them are solar system killers. And then there's all these grand stakes about the fate of the galaxy. And I get it. It's Star Wars. It's part of the mythology. I get that. And I think of all those movies, they all did that part of it really well. But I love that Solo is just we're going to take all that and throw it away. And literally the highest stake is just that the angry guy's gonna kill us. We gotta do this thing. We gotta steal his glow sticks and get it back to him before he kills us to make him make him mad. That's the plot of Solo. I love the lower stakes stuff, and I think that kind of thing. I kind of hope going into this movie we can get something more, as you're saying, pensive, something more lower stakes, a little bit slower. Not not J.J. Abrams' pace. Look, I love J.J. Abrams. But he makes a fast movie, okay? Everything's got to be fast. He created a droid that could run, that could go so fast. That's why he makes movies so fast. It's you can keep up with this movie. And I love the idea of yes, let's take a step back and go it's not about the fate of the galaxy. Maybe it's just something about the Jedi Order or about two people or new apprentices, or it's not somebody's going to burn down the Jedi Temple for the 8th time. It's not that. It's something else.
Yeah. You know what? I almost kind of look at the Lego Christmas special and kind of think there might be something there. And I'm not talking about the time travel element of it, but
no, absolutely time travel element.
but the like Rey is trying to restart the Jedi Order. She's trying to figure out what it means to be a Jedi, to be a Jedi Master. And I like the idea of like she takes it's an adventure with Rey and a couple of students. And these new kids that are learning what it means to be a Jedi. Well, Rey is also trying to figure out what it means to be a Jedi post New Republic, post Order 66, post like everything. Like in like all these previous iterations of the Jedi Order failed in one way or another. That's what Luke is telling us constantly through the last Jedi. At the height of their powers, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise and create the Empire and wipe them out. Like that's what he's saying. And so Rey on a smaller adventure with a couple of young students trying to work all of this out, I think could be a really interesting and sort of exciting story that, as you guys are saying, isn't fate of the galaxy. There isn't another Death Star out there. The Sith isn't the Emperor isn't out there. There isn't even a new Sith out there that they're trying to avoid. There's something more personal, something more internal that's going on, and it's it manifests itself through confronting external threats.
Because and to that point, two thoughts I have to add to that is one, and I think maybe the reason why I'm like agreeing with this so much is that the one personal criticism I have, a personal criticism I have of the sequel trilogy is I don't think they did enough to flesh out her arc. I think there was some good points to it, but I don't think it was it didn't go high enough and low enough. It was too direct to where she ended up. Sure. So for my personal interest of the character, I want to see her challenged in a very specific way, detailed way, that she has to really delve into some deep in her mind and the Force and her understanding of everything. If you think of like Luke's journey, I think that he's challenged in very certain ways. It's not just like he just got powerful. So I think, I really love this idea of like, let's see her be challenged by in a very hard way. As well as the second point I was going to make, which was really something. Oh yes. I liken it to this movie. I would love to see it similar to the Boba Fett episode where we are with Luke and Grogu, being similar to that in terms of, we kind of Luke's at a certain point, but it's not just like, oh, there he is. It's like, oh, what is he doing? Is he going to train other people, other kids? What's his philosophy? Like his interaction with Grogu, like there was no real conflict in that, period we were with them, but we could learn some things. We learned some things. There was a storyline. There was something like we were going somewhere with it. So I could see a whole movie being like that, where it's like, and like what you just said, I think, Rey, maybe a Padawan or maybe two Padawans or something, and they just get in some sort of small conflict and have to overcome it. And it's about what they learn on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the one thing I really want from this movie is I want Rey's iteration of the Jedi Order to look almost nothing like the Order from the prequel trilogy. One thing that I feel like the old Legends canon got very wrong was the post Return of the Jedi stories were being written at the same time as the prequel trilogy was coming out. And the prequel trilogy was showing us what the Jedi at the height of their power looked like. And so those post Return of the Jedi stories started to try and mimic those with Luke's Jedi Order. And before long, it's Luke Skywalker leading a Jedi Council meeting in that circular spire in the temple on Coruscant. And it's like, that's not the lesson he should have taken from the original trilogy. It wasn't, hey, everything we did was awesome. We should go back to doing that. And that's something that really drove me crazy about the later series. So I feel like that needs to be avoided at all costs. And I think Rey's Jedi Order needs to look very different. And like Hannah was saying, I feel like the sort of the layout for that, the exploration for that is, the template for it. That's the word I was looking for. The template for that is that Book of Boba Fett episode, where it is Luke and Grogu training in the forest, and it's sort of it feels more Luke and Yoda on Dagobah than it does Jedi Council meeting in the Spire in the temple on Coruscant. So that is something I feel like needs to be built off of. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No. I'm kind of jumping off of what you're saying here. I like what you're laying down, and I like the idea of maybe what we're talking about here is the movie. Maybe the movie can be the question of how do you do something like this? How do you, because we've had this situation twice in Star Wars, in the Skywalker saga, of the Jedi Order is built up and then it falls, and then a young Jedi who is the last of their kind is left to pick up the pieces and rebuild the Order. It happened with Luke, and it happened with Rey. But both instances we never really saw, outside of that one episode of the Book of Boba Fett, which is really fleeting, just this overall idea of what does it actually take to rebuild the Jedi Order, and how do you do it now that you're Rey and you know that this has been happened at least a couple times already. How do you go forward, and how do you do it right this time? How do you do something that is going to last for millennia, like the previous, like the Jedi of the Old Republic did? And maybe that's what the movie's about. Maybe this is Rey right after Rise of Skywalker, like picking up. I know it's supposed to be 30 years afterwards, but we could still flash back to her going on Exegol, going like, what the hell do I do now? Like, that's something that I think the movies glossed over, specifically the sequel trilogy, of just like, the sequel trilogy was so focused on, let's just kind of recreate that feeling from the original trilogy of like, there's no Jedi left and everything's on the brink. And if Rey dies, it's all over with. And, it's this whole thing. And I think ultimately the story that I want to see is like, okay, how do you do this? How do you rebuild the Order in a way that doesn't repeat the same mistakes again and makes it meaningful? And I have my own ideas. I have a lot of like fan fiction ideas of like, how do you do this? Do you not just build a temple? Is it all about just like, maybe a rule of 2 for the Jedi? You have a master and apprentice, and that's it.
Interesting.
Maybe that's what it is. Or it could be something completely different. But I like the idea of like, let Rey explore this, and then if it is 30 years afterwards, like, how has it worked out? And is she realizing at this point that she's made mistakes?
Yeah, that could be interesting. Like, what? Yeah, I don't know. A rule of two feels very extreme, but like, yeah, keeping the Jedi as something that is much smaller and also separate from the politics, the government of the galaxy, as sort of an external thing, a thing that's more spiritual than it is an arm of any government, which in and of itself, like, that could lead to interesting stories down the line when there could be tension between the Republic and the Jedi, which is not something we've seen a ton of. Even in the High Republic, like, the Jedi and the Republic seem to be pretty much on the same page. And in the prequel trilogy, I mean, the Jedi are generals, for crying out loud. But what if you have a story somewhere down the line where the Republic is saying, this is what must be, and the new Jedi Order is like, actually, no. And then the conflict is almost between the different good guys, quote unquote, good guys. And that could lead to some really interesting stories, because that's one hope I have for this movie, is that it doesn't just serve to be a good movie in and of itself, but actually it serves as a jumping off point for many more stories down the line, and perhaps a much larger, more expansive galaxy. A couple of comments in the chat that have kind of sort of hitting on sort of ideas for what the structure of the film could be like. The Negotiator says, I could see something similar to the Gathering episodes of the Clone Wars with Ahsoka and the younglings. Yeah, like that's could sort of work. Comran says, Rey and the Jedi Temple of Doom. Rey goes on a journey to learn the Jedi way and looks for some lost Jedi relics. I kind of like that idea as well. just to go back to what Hannah said a while ago about Rey's journey in the sequel trilogy. Yeah, something that occurred to me as about Rey's journey is that Rey spends that entire trilogy looking for guidance. She's looking for it from Han Solo, from Luke.
Right.
And when she can't get it from Luke, who does she go to? She goes to Ben. She goes to Kylo. And even in Rise of Skywalker, like, you know, she only sort of gets her head put on straight when Luke says, "Hey, what are you doing? A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect." Blah blah blah. And you compare that to Luke's journey, right? Which is what you were doing earlier, Hannah. And Luke there's this moment, right, where he does spend the first two movies looking for a bit of guidance from Obi-Wan, from Yoda. But there's this moment in the third movie where he actively chooses to go against his mentors and say, your way is not my way. You know, Obi-Wan and Yoda want him to just kill Vader and the Emperor and be done with it. And he's like, that's not what's going to win the day for us. That's not what's going to save us in the end. I think there's still good in Anakin. I think I can redeem him. Let me try it my way. And that is what succeeds. That is what works. And so Rey has spent 3 movies now looking for guidance. There is no one left. And an arc that I think could be very compelling for her in this movie is, what do you do when there's no one left to guide you? When there's no one left to tell you which way to go, no one left to teach you, but you still feel like you have a lot to learn. And now you've been put in the role of teacher. And it could be one of those things of the teacher learns as much from the student as the student learns from the teacher. And these, again, if we're just at this point, we're just writing our version of the movie here.
I know, I like it.
This is basically what we're having here is a writer's room, where we're deciding the plot of the
No,
Jedi.
that down. No, write that down.
Put that on the whiteboard. Put that on the whiteboard. But I think, you know, Rey trying to figure out the right way to do things, and her students kind of through their challenges and foibles and follies, struggling with that, and teaching her teaching her what she is trying to learn. Again, I think could really work. And again, Lego Special does this remarkably well for a cartoon Christmas special comedy that involves time travel, because Rey is like, how do I be a better master? And it's only when she realizes that she's ignoring Finn that she's like, okay, now I can start to see it. So
look, I hope Kathleen Kennedy sat Stephen Knight down and was like, okay, you can pretty much do whatever you want, take it wherever you want. Just know that obviously you're taking off from Rise of Skywalker, and the Lego specials are canon.
All that time travel stuff that was critical to the storyline. But yeah, I feel like we've got a good basis here. I think Stephen Knight, I know you're watching. I think use our notes rather than the Lucasfilm notes, and you'll have the movie all ready to go in time for, let's say, December 2026. Let's be optimistic. Let's say we're gonna get 2 movies in 2026.
I just reading that comment before we move on. Reading that comment, that's such a good point. He says that she has the Jedi texts.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see those come up again.
Oh yeah!
Oh my goodness! Yeah, modernize them to the time. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. No,
absolutely.
And it's another thing of just like,
yeah.
How does this connect? Like Rey, perhaps trying to recreate the Jedi Order. Not trying to copy from what came before her, but trying to go all the way back to the source material, really, and trying to recreate something from that. But then we're going to see that story in James Mangold's movie. And how does that interface with what's going on in the Rey movie?
Yeah. Well, something that was a sort of key theme in Last Jedi was, the legend of Luke Skywalker versus the reality of Luke Skywalker. And that could be something that's carried forward in across the films themselves, where Rey is like, I need to look back on these great Jedi of the past, and then we'll go back and see some of them, and we'll see the struggles that they went through, and that can then inform her journey going forward, and how we view her journey and what she learns and what she passes along. I think there's opportunities for these stories not to necessarily tie in with each other directly, where they're like quasi sequels to each other, but for them to like thematically connect, which I think could be really, really exciting. But yeah, this is the comment that Junobi left. Didn't Rey read the Jedi texts Luke saved? Maybe she will carry those theories forward and basically modernize them to her time period, keep them and update them in a way, which I think is ultimately what needs to be done to the Jedi Order, is go back to those original ideas, take what works and apply it to what's going on in the galaxy 15 years post Rise of Skywalker. All right, let's keep moving here. Again, sticking with Rey. This is a very Rey-centric episode thus far. Yeah, absolutely. This report comes from Jeff Snyder, who is one of the big insiders. He was the first person to break the fact that there was the Damon Lindelof movie that, of course, became the Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy movie. He was reported that there was Dave Filoni was making a Star Wars movie. This guy has sources. This guy has connections. And he's reporting that another Star Wars movie, another one of those movies that's sort of quasi out there, which is the Sean Levy movie. Sean Levy is reportedly going to direct a Star Wars movie once he gets done with his obligations, I think, to what?
And it's not reportedly. He's multiple times in interviews saying he's doing this, even though it's like not really officially announced.
Yeah, Lucasfilm.
Like that. He says he's doing this.
Yeah, Lucasfilm hasn't dragged him out on stage at Celebration yet, so there's still a little bit of wiggle room for somewhere down the line where they can say we never announced it. But I think he's got commitments to Deadpool and to Stranger Things and stuff. So his movie's probably a little ways down the line. But Jeff Snyder's reporting that his movie may also involve Rey somehow. So it seems that this first movie may not just be a standalone, but it may actually be kicking off a larger story. My question is this like just like two Rey stories that happen to sort of be happening, one after the other that aren't really related, or is this the beginning of not necessarily a trilogy, but like, there could be a series of sorts, something where you have multiple directors, multiple storytellers sort of pushing these characters forward, pushing their stories forward, but without the confines of you got to have a story that's told over 3 movies. This could just be advancing the characters over multiple movies without any necessary end game involved.
Yeah, I think this could be a case, and this is coming from not a Marvel person, but from my vague knowledge of Marvel, where Iron Man had a bunch of movies. He had three movies. So that is like, Iron Man, boom. But then he came into, was it the Spider-Man movies? Was he in the Spider-Man movie? Or am I thinking of the Infinity something?
He had a lot of cameos, but he was like had a big role in one of the Spider-Man movies, yes.
Yeah, right? So I can see this kind of being like that situation where it's like, oh, Rey turns into this character, especially if it's like post Rise of Skywalker. She's like middle-aged now and she's a lot wiser and more mature. I can see her as a character, in, let's say like 7 years' time, we get a Grogu the Jedi movie or whatever. Rey popping up as a character in other movies and other stories. So I could see it being like that, like being as vague as that. But yeah, I don't know. But Ben, what do you think it could be?
Well, I'm kind of like going off of like what Dominic was talking about earlier, and we're like, could this obviously this movie is going to be set 15 years after the Rey Skywalker movie that we've been talking about, 15 years after the events of Rise of Skywalker, and it's a movie that will be really setting the tone for what's coming next, and what the era of Star Wars will be after the Rise of Skywalker, after the sequel trilogy. So, and I like the idea of like maybe this is the jumping off point of just like, okay, this is going to set the tone, and then maybe there's a story involving the Jedi in Sean Levy's movie, and naturally Rey would show up in that, and she would make a cameo or something like that. Maybe even, and we all this time we're calling this the Rey Skywalker movie. I've talked about this before. We don't know to the degree of what Daisy Ridley's role will be in that movie. We don't. They haven't necessarily, I don't think they said this is going to be the Rey Skywalker movie. They just said this is going to be about Jedi Master Rey Skywalker 15 years after Rise of Skywalker and how she's rebuilding the Jedi. That's basically what they said. And so it could be she's the main character again, and she again, which I'm kind of hoping for, if I'm being honest. But also, it could also be she's the mentor. She's the Han Solo or the Ben Kenobi of the story, and she's mentoring characters. And, it could just be something along those lines. And maybe Sean Levy's movie is even less screen time for her, but still something meaningful that she's showing up in. Ultimately, this could be, as Dominic said, a jumping off point of just like, yeah, there's going to be movies and series. And just like we have stuff crossing over in the quote unquote Mandoverse, we could have stuff happening in this new Jedi Order era where characters, fingers crossed, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, all those guys, Chancellor Rose Tico, that's what I'm hoping for, showing up and doing their thing.
Yeah, I mean, the era that this story takes place in is called the New Jedi Order, and maybe there's a little bit of a lesson to be learned from the Legends version of the New Jedi Order, which was there was an overarching story, but there were a lot of like side stories that were told through those books and that over the years and from like 99 to 03 or 04, sort of in that range. And maybe that's sort of what they're going to do on screen. And yeah, this kicks off an era. And maybe one of the, again, if we just use our version of this story, where it's like Rey and a couple of Padawans, and if we use our version of that, maybe one of those kids, one of those Padawans, becomes the star of this next movie. Like they're who Sean Levy's writing the movie about, and Rey is there to offer some wisdom or to maybe get the story going, but is not the star in it the way she seems to be positioned for this movie.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff going on. We could be entering into a renaissance in the next few years for Rey Skywalker.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's lovely. I like that.
All right, let's talk about The Mandalorian and Grogu. That is the next Star Wars movie. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about that last week when the movie was announced. But one of the questions we had was, okay, Favreau's writing this. Kennedy, Favreau, and Filoni are producing this. Who the hell is writing this? Well, it seems we've got our answer. The Hollywood Reporter Heat Vision newsletter went out this week, and they seem to answer the question in there. And they also answered some other questions that we had about how this movie came to be. I'll read a little segment from Heat Vision. It says this: Star Wars gave us confusion more than anything else with its Jon Favreau movie announcement. After the very mess season 3 of The Mandalorian, who was clamoring for a movie? And what happens to season 4 of the show? What happens to the Dave Filoni directed movie that was supposed to bring together the Filoniverse shows? I love that they're calling it the Filoniverse. I still call it the Mandoverse, but Filoniverse works too, because it does include like Rebels and Clone Wars and stuff, and honestly Resistance too. Just bring it all together. Continuing with the Heat Vision, all good questions, and here's what we know. Pre-strikes, Lucasfilm was intent on making season 4 of Mandalorian. The scripts had all been written. During the great Hollywood break, however, things got reevaluated, with plans shifting to the movie as the priority. What happens to season 4 now is unclear. It's definitely not a given. If the movie is successful, it could lead to into a next phase of Mando storytelling, becoming more movie sequels. Box office and fan reaction would determine that. Sources say that Filoni's own movie is still on track at this point, although it is due to come after season 2 of Ahsoka, whenever that may be. The good news here, for movie fans at least, is that audiences will have their first Favreau-directed big screen outing since 2019's remake of The Lion King. Favreau is not only directing the feature, but according to sources, is also writing the script. with Filoni. So kind of the thing we all kind of assumed was that the two of them would co-write the movie together. No real surprise. I think we've talked about this previously. My feeling is that Favreau is the better director and Filoni is the better writer. So this feels like, if Filoni has a little bit more sway over the script and Favreau has a little bit more sway over what happens on the set, that probably plays to each of their strengths. So I think that's probably for the best.
To me, that feels like the secret ingredient of seasons 1 and 2 of Mandalorian, which was near perfect in my opinion. So I think if they can bring some of that flavor back and have those two work together on this, I think that sounds really good to me.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that's kind of interesting in all this, they mentioned the Dave Filoni movie being sort of like, I saw a lot of stupid headlines this week. There were a lot of stupid ass headlines.
This week, you sure?
This week was especially bad for stupid ass headlines. There was all this stuff with the Rey movie. There was people saying ridiculous things on YouTube channels, and then there was a whole bunch of reports that said the Filoni movie gets a disappointing update, and it seemed to just be this. I was like, what the hell is going on? I open up Google to search something, and there's that friggin' little, it gives you all those news articles where it's like, you must be interested in reading this. And because I like Star Wars, it throws me that. And it's like the Filoni movie gets a disappointing update, and I click on it and it's just this. So what, I don't know what the hell that was all about. But like,
it's for all the people that hate Filoni, I guess.
Yes, but it's like, or people that like just are looking for reasons to be upset. They never told us a release date for this movie, and anyone with a brain could probably infer that the movie was a little ways down the line, because at the very least, even if you take The Mandalorian and Grogu out of the equation, we assumed there was going to be a second season of Ahsoka, which would take up a lot of his attention, and probably a second season of The Mandalorian, or sorry, a fourth season of The Mandalorian that would take up some of his attention as well. Not to mention the fact that the man is now the chief creative whatever of Lucasfilm. So he's working on everything. So yeah, his movie isn't ready to go for next year. Whoop-de-doo. Anyways, I think
so good.
Yeah, an accurate headline would be Star Wars movie announced. Star Wars fans furious.
It's like the bit in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy of however many billion years ago the Earth was created, or the universe was created, and it has generally been assumed to be, or generally been agreed upon to be, a bad thing. And like, I'm like, that's sort of how I feel Star Wars fans treat Star Wars. 1977, Star Wars was created. It was the most popular thing in the world. We all love it, but we all agree it was a bad thing to have happened. Anyways, again, I do read a lot into that last paragraph of the Mandalorian and Grogu announcement, and the Filoni's movie is mentioned third. I think as Mando Grogu, May 2026, Rey in either late 2026 or sometime in 2027, Mangold after that, and then Filoni after that. And that leaves plenty of time for second seasons of Ahsoka and other seasons of other shows if they want to do them. So anyway, so I just that really annoyed me this week. There was a lot of things that really annoyed me in Star Wars this week, but that one, it's like, this is a really dumb one that I feel like I'm just gonna put all of my anger towards.
There is this very, very small group, and I only discovered them when Ahsoka was airing. There's a very small minority that really, really does not like Dave Filoni. And they're really intense about it. They're really passionate. So I wonder if this maybe is sourced from someone like that.
I think it's just playing into, sorry, Ben. I think it's just playing into that same thing of people just know they can get clicks from saying there's problems with Star Wars when there's no problem here.
Yeah,
there's a timeline. And this movie is just further down the timeline. It's just going to take longer because the man is working on other stuff. Anyways, and so, but any opportunity they can say, the movie's been delayed, they'll write an article about it and get a bunch of clicks, and doofuses will make YouTube videos about it.
But it's so funny, like to your point, Hannah, like this whole idea, because I remember 10 years ago, back when the Clone Wars was in full swing, and every week it was, oh my God, what did Filoni, how is Filoni ruining the EU this week on Clone Wars? Even Peele died, he died in whatever book, and Filoni is the ruiner of the EU. He hates the EU. He's destroying Star Wars. That was the thing. Filoni was, you couldn't Google search Filoni's name without a picture of him being punched showing up. Like that was the culture back then. And
never mind the fact that Dave Filoni single-handedly is doing more for the expanded universe right now than anybody else by bringing in Thrawn.
Like he got all the flack for it. Like it was George behind the scenes going like, "Yeah, I don't care. Just do it. Just steamroll over the
rewrite it. It's fine." Yeah.
But then going through this phase, this arch of like, Filoni is a god. You have the meme, oh, Filoni. And then coming back down into this new era where, yes, okay, Filoni's had a few things that some people don't like. He's a flawed human being. He's made a couple of duds. Now people are like, oh, Filoni, get your pitchforks together. And it's just like, I know where this came from.
He sounds like the Kathleen Kennedy of like 2008 for Star Wars, where it's like,
really
that's
was.
a good figurehead. That's the good figurehead to hate on. Yeah.
Literally, I was my very first Star Wars celebration all the way back in 2010. Back in my day. I was
when I was 10 years old.
16.
Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah.
God, I guess gotta take some time and ponder the passage of time as
I'm way older than both
lives,
of you.
our lives slip through the hourglass. Anyways, but I was at celebration. I was walking the floor, and I literally overheard this conversation between two fellow attendees of celebration. One of them said, Dave Filoni, the man who is single-handedly ruining Star Wars. And the other one went,
so
yep.
crazy.
Yeah, it was, and
so crazy.
Yeah, and so like now, 14 years later, I'm like, to see everybody being like, Dave Filoni's a god, he's saving Star Wars. I'm like, I remember you weren't. It was a different time.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Like there always has to be the hero and the villain. They always have to cast the hero. Like back in those days, it was like George was the hero. He was the one who created Star Wars. Then Filoni was the villain. But then sometimes George was the villain. He was the crazy director that didn't know what he was doing.
Bad. George was the villain long before Dave was the villain.
Oh yeah,
go back
for sure,
to 97,
for sure. Like
George
go back to Empire Strikes Back.
90s. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
especially
hilarious.
the special editions.
It's hilarious to me when people go, "Oh, they're disrespecting George's vision. Oh, I want George Lucas to come back." It's like if George Lucas came back, we'd be 7 sequels deep onto the People versus George Lucas, that BS documentary that came out in the in the late 2000s. That just was like, when people are like, oh no, toxic fandom started with Disney, it's like, no, it really didn't. It was around for a long time beforehand, and just go watch that movie, you get a sense.
Yeah, but then now it's now I guess Filoni and Favreau are the heroes that are battling against the evil Kathleen Kennedy who was trying to ruin Star Wars. Yeah, it's as Mark Hamill once said, everything's changed, but nothing's changed.
Anyways, the lingering disdain for Dave Filoni in some corners, and there are other people that I think are more recent converts to Dave Filoni hate, but it's just that's out there.
I think it's Rule 35. If it exists, somebody hates it on the internet.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's keep going here. Here's an interesting rumor. Ben, you're a Marvel fan, aren't you? You enjoy the Marvel Cinematic Universe by and large.
Yes, I think I'm the only person that enjoys it anymore, but yes, I enjoy it.
And have you been watching that there show Marvel What If ... question mark?
I in the past tense, I watched it.
Yeah, you've watched it. You watched it all. Have you ever thought that a Star Wars version of that might be interesting?
As a matter of fact, I have.
So there was a report this week from Daniel RPK, another one of the Hollywood insiders with a fairly decent track record, some hits, some misses, but that Lucasfilm and Disney are actively developing a what if show for the Star Wars universe. What do we think about this? What do we think about what if Star Wars or Star Wars what if?
Again, so much negativity surrounding this, and I'm like, give it to me. I'm 100% down with it. Like, I don't like. There's a very specific style to what if that what Marvel's doing, and I don't really want that version of it. Like, Marvel is obviously leaning into the multiverse stuff and all that kind of stuff these days. Like, that's like, I don't want Star Wars multiverse. That's a bridge too far for me. But I think generally, in the style of what's been done before, which is the Star Wars Infinities comics, I think would be an excellent idea. I think it could be a really fun way to, what if Luke died on Hoth and Han went to Dagobah to have Jedi training? Like, that's kind of a dumb idea, but I kind of want to see it.
Yeah. Hannah, what do you think? What do you think of the idea of a Star Wars what if?
Well, weirdly, I'm not vibing it. I think because with current Star Wars content, I primarily quite enjoy. But the one thing that is paining me a little bit is the whiplash of the variety of the we're in Andor, then we're gonna go to Acolyte, and then we're in Tales of the Jedi, and then we're gonna go to Bad Batch, and then we're going to Kenobi. Like all these kind of elements were really enjoyable. I mean, we haven't got Acolyte yet, but all the shows we have gotten have been really enjoyable, and I've really enjoyed a lot of the shows. But just that I'm just a little kind of, I think, exhausted of the focus shifting probably too much for me personally. So I really want like more of a settled focus. Hey, okay, we're focusing on this era of the Mandoverse era, and the movies are doing this. Sorry, I'm distracted because I'm getting slightly out of focus. The movies are following this storyline. The shows will follow this storyline. I kind of wanted them to really just hone in a little bit instead of jumping all over the place. Which is weird to say because it's, again, I like the content of it, but I'm not enjoying how randomized it is. And let's make a show for every time period ever.
Yeah. Sort of like spin the wheel. What era are we doing a show in this month kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. And as much as, I laugh and am sad of how many things have been cancelled, I'm thinking in a world, in an alternate universe where like we mentioned, that that Disney Day, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Where it was like 10 shows or like 8 shows and 2 movies or something were announced.
It was a lot.
And imagine if that all came to fruition and we had that amount of content. Like, it would
most of it has. Most of it has. We're missing Rogue Squadron, Lando, and Droidsdale, but like most of it.
Rangers of the New Republic.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that one. That's true. Actually, you make a good point. I thought more of it had come out, but you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish it would hone in a little more. But if this report came out like 2 years ago, I would be all over it. I'll be like, this is amazing. This is what we need. But I think just right now, as a Star Wars fan, I'm like, I'm just a little whiplashed from the jumping around of all the different types and styles of shows, and I kind of want to hone in a little bit more. But in saying that, if it happens and it came out tomorrow, and we got all these episodes of all these what ifs, put Padme in there and Qui-Gon and all these different stories of characters, I think I'd probably love it more than anything. So yeah, I'm kind of eating my own words here, but good and bad.
So when I saw this report came out, I was very tempted to make a post that said, what if ... we didn't. And I know that you can go back on this show and find me saying that I think this would be a lot of fun. And I know we did a whole episode a year or two ago where we just like went through concepts for what if episodes could be, and we had a lot of fun doing that. And I just, my opinion of it has changed. And when I saw the report that this might be happening, I was sort of like kind of disappointed that that's what they're spending the resources on, potentially, allegedly. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm just not interested right now. I'm just not interested in going, what if Anakin hadn't turned to the dark side? What if Luke had died on Hoth? What if these things had happened? And I haven't been able to get into the Marvel one. I watched like 2 episodes of the first season, and it just didn't hold my attention. And I know a Star Wars one would hold my attention much more, just because I care more about it. But I don't know. I feel, I think the way, Hannah, that you feel about Visions is how I feel about this potential show, which is like,
that's something.
I'm sure there's good to be had there, but frankly, I'd rather have another season of Visions. I'd rather have another volume of not like going, what if something that we know happened didn't happen, but taking the Visions approach, which is, what if Blue Sky do whatever you want with Star Wars? I'd rather have that version of it. That's more interesting to me, because ultimately I love Star Wars because I love the stories that have been told and the stories that might be told in the future. And taking a story that I already know and love and going, here's a different version of it. Here's a version where like the things you love don't happen, doesn't really interest me, because I love the things that did happen. And I, just sort of going, oh, what if Anakin didn't turn to the dark side? Well, then that's not interesting, because the story is Anakin turns to the dark side. That's the story I like. That's the story I want. What are you going to show me in this other version that's better? And maybe I'm being closed-minded. I'm open to that. Maybe I'm being a hypocrite. I'm open to that. But it really, really right now is just sort of, I'm like, do literally anything else. Do literally anything else, and I'd be more excited.
I do sympathize with people. So a lot of comments, people going like, okay, what's the point of this? Why do we need this? Because there's so many Star Wars stories to tell. There's so many amazing things you could do, like literally everything. So like what you're saying, Hannah, like we have things in every era, everything. You can go anywhere in the timeline and tell a new story. Versus Marvel, what's branching off of this Marvel What If series. Marvel tells their stories in a linear fashion. You don't generally, with a few minor exceptions, whatever Marvel movie or TV show is coming out now is set now in the timeline. There's not jumping around in the Marvel timeline, in the MCU at least. It's all kind of, every story comes after the last one, versus Star Wars, which is all over the place. So a what if thing kind of works in a way for Marvel better, because it's like, okay, well, what if we went back? What if literally one of the stories is like, what if Tony Stark didn't become Iron Man? What if he didn't get a grenade to the face and, something else happened? We're going back to all the way to 2008 to retell that story in a different way, versus we can just go back and we can revisit these characters and we can go tell a story with Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia if we want to, because we get them all the time, because those characters are just around. We can go back to them. So ultimately, I do agree. Like, I would really like to see this. I would be game to see it, but I'm also like, I get not wanting to see it. I get like let's just move on. We don't really need it. Maybe the compromise here is to bring back the Star Wars Infinities comics and let that be a thing again. Like, do it in comic form to where it's less resources devoted to it. It's just a comic series. They can do whatever they want. They can do crazy things, versus you have 12 episodes or 8 episodes. And you have to pick the right story for that. And it's a whole complicated thing. You have to animate it and all this kind of stuff, versus just a comic book series that could go pretty much do anything. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I did read a couple of the Infinities books, and they were fun. I did enjoy them. Again, maybe I am being a hypocrite here, but I was like, when I saw this, and like, I know I read some comments on like where people were saying, oh, I'm not interested in this because the fandom already fights over everything, and I'm sort of like, that's not really what I'm worried about. You know,
Well,
I see that. I understand where people are coming from on that point. But
if we were worried about the discourse, the Rey Skywalker movie would not happen. If that was the
good point.
benchmark, the discourse is going to be awful going to that movie. Let's just think, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be made. It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I don't know. We'll see. It is still firmly in the rumor category.
It's not up to us, okay?
Yeah.
It's not.
Well,
it's gonna happen whether we like it or not.
I think it is.
And here's the thing: like, if it does come out and the show happens, like, are we going to do breakdowns of every episode on this show? Yeah, of course we are. Of course we are.
If I have to sit here and review Visions season 2, we can do anything.
You're like you can damn well review season 1 of
yes, we can. But I mean, chat is actually bringing up a few comments. I've seen people talking about Tales of the Jedi.
Yeah.
To me, this is like Tales of the Jedi is pretty much canon what if series. And Julie make a comment as well. Truth.
How so?
I do have this truth.
Yeah, there's some rumors floating around that there might be Tales of the Sith and Tales of the Bounty Hunters being in development, and that would be really, really cool. And I will say no more.
Do you know something? Do you know something?
I can neither confirm nor deny. Check your messages later.
Really? You messaged? Okay.
I haven't said that yet. I forgot to tell you guys.
Great. Okay. Cool.
Forgot to tell my friends this really cool thing.
Brilliant. Great.
But,
glad we're high on your priority list, Dom. Remember that next time. Okay.
Yeah. Hannah's like, you're not getting a birthday card next year.
Yeah. Damn you.
But you said, okay, so you say Tales of the Jedi is like canon. What if? Do elaborate.
Yeah, well, now that I've thought about, okay, how do I elaborate? I realized that's not really a coherent statement to make.
No,
because
in a sense that it's like these vignettes that are kind of standalone, and they kind of they kind of jump around and they do different stories, but they're not what if stories. They're canon stories. They're real stories, things as opposed to what if scenarios.
Yes, it's less of.
Did I make your point for you? Did I make
that's actually, I didn't even need to say a comment. Like literally what Ben said. Yeah, it's just stories that you won't see in a major movie. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's short stories. And
short stories. Yeah.
I think a good short story. Yeah. And I do, regardless of what rumors may or may not be out there, we are definitely getting a second season of Tales of the Jedi. And that is something I'm very, very looking forward to. Very, very much looking forward to it. And like, if we're going to do these sort of anthology things, again, much more interested in Tales of the Jedi and potential Tales of the insert here, as well as I do love Visions. I do really love it. So I'd love to see more of all of those things. And if that's if there's a certain amount of resources that can be allotted to short stories, give me those. Give me Tales of the Blank and give me Visions.
I will
over
say,
what if.
I will like to add here that we have two very, very talented what's the title? Executive producers, I think. Or I don't know. But with the names of Jennifer Corbett and Brad Rao, that their time might be freeing up a little with the end of Bad Batch season 3. I'm not up to date with their involvement in the other projects, but they might have some free time on their hands to perhaps help develop a new series of such that is animated, or maybe not even animated. Maybe they go into live action. But those are two very good creatives that they trust.
You listen to me, Jennifer Corbett. Okay, you stop your teasing us with those tweets and tell us what you're doing.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I'm dying over here.
I love. On the occasions that I check Twitter these days, I very much enjoying Jennifer Corbett just tormenting all of us, going, "Oh, you guys love to know something about Bad Batch," and I wonder. I can't decide if I think she knows something, or if she's going, yeah, I also want to know. I made the freaking show. When can I show it to you? I wonder if there's an element of that as well.
So good.
Because the Lucas. I mean, Lucasfilm like just like wasted a year going. Bad Batch season 2 is coming soon before finally saying, yeah, it's actually not. It's actually going to be the year after that. Like there was a whole year between seasons 1 and 2. It was insane. When there didn't need to be. And like, yeah, people are looking forward to a Bad Batch trailer. One exists. I saw it at Celebration.
Me too. I'm witness.
Months ago. 8 months ago, I saw it.
It was fully animated.
Screen. Yeah, on a big screen. It looked great. It sounded great. It was really cool. It was a great teaser.
Wow,
I
I
should
didn't
bring
even
it back.
notice.
Just throw that on the internet and go, here you go. You don't even have to put a release date on it. Just say coming soon.
Have you seen that there's like someone has gone deep into this and seen there's privated videos lined up on the Star Wars YouTube channel?
That's amazing.
They're all there. There's 3 of them. And I'm like, that's got to be a teaser trailer, like, or a trailer, a teaser trailer, and maybe some other follow-up promo. I'm like, that's got to be Bad Batch stuff.
Hey,
God, I hope so.
It's
Bob
ready
from social
ready.
media. We know it's just
press
sitting
the
there
button,
in the folder. Just accidentally hit the. We'll protect you. We'll
Come on.
protect you. Just do that. Just do it.
Yeah, just hit it. Well, okay, so there's 2 shows that I think we get in the first half of this year. One is Bad Batch, one is Acolyte. Trailers have got to start at some point. And maybe there's some overlap again, just like there was between Mando 3 and Bad Batch 2.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully
that was so
not.
bad.
That was really
so
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like it was annoying because the better show was getting less attention because everybody was looking at Mandalorian and Bad Batch was over here going like, look at how amazing we can be. What aired the same week as the friggin' Bird Hunt episode? What Bad Batch episode didn't get any attention because that piece of garbage was on our screens? Anyways,
it was literally the best
all
episode
wounds.
of the season. That was the best episode. Oh, shit.
You used to get the part. You missed the part where Killer and Beck was all badass with 2
Oh, yeah,
lightsabers.
that-
And Grogu got
cool.
a shield on his.
You're telling me
thing
you
and-
don't like that episode, Dom, but you freaking
Remember
ate
one
up the
moment,
Benny
one moment.
episode in Bad Batch. The freaking soup boy who's like, oh, I can't get my own soup. Can you get my soup for me? Or whatever the hell he was up to.
Give me
Benny.
Soup Boy over Bird Hunt any day of the week.
Oh, you're on another planet.
I will say, give me Keller and Beck over both of those, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, for sure.
Do love Ahmed Best. I did love that segment of that episode, even if the rest of it just wasn't to my taste. I'll put it that way.
Thank you, Kenneth.
People in the
I'll
chat
start an army. I'll start an army of people who like this episode against you, Dom.
Okay. All right. We'll go to war on this show. Oh my God. What were we talking about? Oh yeah. What if? That's what we were talking about. Anyways, what if this happens? What if it doesn't? We'll see. Bad Batch trailer, please soon. Acolyte trailer. Come on. Something. I mean, to be fair, last week we did get a movie announcement, so it's not like we're dying for Star Wars news at the moment. So, but yeah,
I could just
either
I
would
just
be fine.
imagine they're just like they drop all the trailers. They drop the trailer for the Acolyte, Bad Batch, and Skeleton Crew on the same day. They're like, oh, all these shows premiering March 1st, the same day.
That would be just troll.
And
Just
then all
but
Star Wars content creators have an aneurysm immediately.
I mean, every year somebody goes, they should release this show on May the 4th. And what if they just released every show? They're like, you know what? All right, you're getting Bad Batch, all episodes, Acolyte, all episodes, Tales of the Jedi, all episodes, and all episodes of the incomplete Skeleton Crew, all at the same time, all on May 4th. You guys figure it out. I love it. All right, what else we got? I think we can sort of we'll sort of skim through the rest of the news because there's some nice stuff here, but not a ton to focus on. Diego Luna says that there's a week left on filming Andor season 2. He says he said at the Emmys that he has 7 days left to film, and he's going back to the UK to finish it. Andor season 2, we're of course assuming will come out in 2025, not 2024 as we initially hoped. Ben, as you mentioned off the hop, you guys are watching Young Jedi Adventures on the Star Wars Underworld Discord. Well, there's gonna be 6 more episodes for you to watch. 6 more episodes are dropping on Valentine's Day. February 14th, the final 6 episodes of season 1 of Young Jedi Adventures. How better to celebrate love in general than with love of Star Wars and Young Jedi Adventures. Visions, the great Visions received 6 nominations at the 51st Annie Awards, which celebrate animation, which is pretty cool. Ahsoka also got one for Best Character Animation Live Action, because that's what an animation awards needs, is awards for live action. Although, to be fair, photoreal animation is very underappreciated, and I think we can actually blame Jon Favreau for that with his live action Lion King and Jungle Book movies that were basically animated movies. Not to say they weren't good, but they were just, animated to look real, which is very impressive. Very impressive in and of itself. The Mandalorian stunt team, including Lateef Crowder, Paul Darnell, JJ Dashnaw, and Ryan Rusaki, got the award for the outstanding stunt performances at the Creative Arts Emmy for Chapter 24, The Return. So congratulations to the Mandalorian stunt crew. That's awesome. And Dave Filoni is getting an award. He'll be honored at the 51st Saturn Awards with the George Pal Memorial Award, which is presented on rare occasions to a filmmaker who embodies a sense of wonder, imagination, and mastery in the fantastic cinematic storytelling. Previous recipients include Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy. So Dave will receive the award during the Saturn Awards presentations on February 4th, 2024, just around the corner. So congratulations, Dave. Very well deserved.
Boo! Boo!
That was so shocking.
Taking the place of the Dave Filoni haters.
Yeah.
Someone has to represent their opinions.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to Ask the SWU, Travis Mitchell posted a few more Star Wars dad jokes in the chat. I thought we'd go through them.
Oh, yay.
What do you call it when Fennec hangs a dead dude from the ceiling?
So dark.
No.
A chandelier.
Oh.
That's dark. Okay. How about this one? How does Din stop his hair from graying? How does the Mandalorian stop his hair from graying?
I don't know. That's a good one.
He uses Mandalorial.
Because you're worth it.
That's a stretch, and that's coming from me. And I took my cat's medicine, don't ask me out joke a few weeks ago. So that's a stretch. Oh, those are good. Those are very good, Travis. Thank you for sending those in. All right, let's go to the Discord. This is appropriate for this week because it relates to it could relate to the Rey movie. Gilster 10. Gil writes in and says, since Doctor Who has the Cybermen and Star Trek has the Borg, should Star Wars have their own cyborg versions that upgrade beings in a galaxy-wide threat like the Vong? It would get away from the Imperial/First Order remnants and force our heroes to face an unfamiliar threat. Matthew from Ion Cannon jumps in here to say that the Scourge in the Dark Droids crossover started to explore this idea in the comics. So what do we think? Cyborg beings who upgrade themselves in the Star Wars galaxy. What do we think?
Why not? Yeah, I mean, I think the elements like this, I think can be explored in Star Wars. I mean, we kind of see this weird iteration of this zombie-like with Ahsoka, you know, zombie-like creatures. So, I think that's definitely something cool and an element of Star Wars we haven't seen too much of. So I would like to see it in something if it fits. It fits. Yeah.
That it was also kind of explored in Book of Boba Fett with the mods, because that's basically what they're doing, is they're modifying their bodies. So like, but like the mods were the good guys in the Book of Boba. Even
Also,
rescuing Fennec and
there's
and
that
Cobb Vanth.
weird thing. There's that weird thing where, like in Rise of Skywalker, in the bar, in the John Williams bar, where like one of the dudes in there is like weirdly similar to Dengar. Like maybe it's supposed to be like this modified, like older droid like Dengar, but they never like confirmed it. Like he has like a different name. It's weird, but that's the only other like similar thing that I could think of in regards to like body modifications and like upgrading yourselves or whatever else. I would just like in general, I hope that like bringing it back to the Rey Skywalker movie, I like the idea of like, what if in that movie 15 years after, like droids are now like they've gained their independence and they're like they're like they have to be treated as equals, and now the galaxy is in disarray because they actually have to like humans and all these people, they have to work. They have to do the things the droids used to do, and I would love that.
Yeah, I mean the movie The Creator kind of had some interesting sort of humans AI stuff that was going on in there that could be interesting for Star Wars to explore. But again, like the mods in Book of Boba, like they were good guys, but what if they were the bad guys? It's something kind of interesting there. I'll say this wouldn't be my first choice for directions for them to go. Like I'm a big Doctor Who fan, but I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of the Cybermen when they show up. I'm never like really excited for them to show up. I don't necessarily think the episodes are all bad. There's some really good ones, but they're not a villain that excites me. And so to say, oh, let's do the Star Wars version of the Cybermen is kind of for me. But a new version of it, the classic cop-out answer of if done well, could get behind. But and yeah, like Gil says, it would be different than just Rebels versus Empire, and for that reason alone, maybe it's worth exploring. All right, we got a super chat from Joel Davis who says, do you think that jumping between storylines could kill momentum, especially if you end the Mando film on a Thrawn cliffhanger and then have to wait 2 whole films before continuing it with Filoni's Endgame? Hannah, this is kind of something similar to what you were talking about like, they it's kind of spin the wheel, pick an era, and that's where the show / movie is for this week. So let's go to you. Do you think this kills the momentum?
Well, it can. It could. It's not saying that you can't do this in a large IP, or like you can't do this in a franchise, but it should all connect. And I think having Dave in the position he is now creatively, I think maybe that was a bit of a move. Like, this is a bit of a stretch, but maybe that was a bit of a thought of someone realizing the variety and the different eras of everything that they've got going on. Someone saying, we got to make sure this all makes sense. Like, we got to make sure this all can flow and it can be released kind of one after another, and it does feel right. So yeah, it's not impossible. It's not gonna, it could kill the momentum. It could. I think it's just, that's the answer. It could, but also it could also absolutely be fine. And I'm just making a drama for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. That's my
I think you're onto something with the Filoni aspect of this, because like I was saying before, the New Jedi Order and the Dawn of the Jedi movies don't have to be sequels to each other, but they could sort of explore the same ideas and build off each other in other ways. And that, I think, still creates momentum, even if it isn't like this story leads to this story, leads to this story, leads to this story. I think what kills momentum more than anything else is the constant announcements of cancellations and delays and not knowing when the next thing is happening, right? Like we're guessing. We just spent a whole bunch of time guessing at when the Bad Batch might come out. We're guessing at when the Acolyte might come out. Give us a window, give us a teaser, like show some stuff so that we can get excited and put a date on it, or put a rough date on it. Say it's coming in March. You don't have to decide March 7th or March 15th or March 23rd. Like you don't have to decide those things now if you don't want to, if you still want to leave yourself some wiggle room to adjust based on what else is going on in the world. But say it's coming in March. Like give us something where we're looking ahead and we can start getting excited, because it's that time in between the shows when it's like, we don't know what's happening. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's happening next. And all we're hearing about is cancellations and delays and this and that, instead of like, here's a new trailer, here's a new teaser, here's a new picture, here's a new thing to get you excited about the next thing. That to me builds momentum more than the stories building into one another. That can build momentum, and maybe they should look into doing that some more. And I think they probably are trying to do that some more. But I think just the allowing the fans and the fan base to just giving them something new to latch onto more often than not, I think that will create your momentum. Because I think if we look back at the last couple of years, if you go back to late 2021, from the book about Boba Fett through Ahsoka, you had Obi-Wan Kenobi, you had Andor, you had Mando 3, you had Bad Batch, you had Visions and Tales of the Jedi and things like that. Like, we should be looking at that as like a golden freaking era of Star Wars. But instead of having a conversation about killing momentum, and it's because in between those shows, we're just left flailing around with nothing to latch onto. And all that gets reported is the bad news, because they aren't releasing stuff to get people excited in between the things. So that's my feeling on momentum. Ben, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm like, because funny, me and Joel privately were having a discussion about this last night, and I got to thinking, like, what order are these movies going to come in, and like, how do you handle it in regards to, keeping people engaged? And like, we had that weird thing that happened between The Force Awakens and Rogue One, of people, oh, Star Wars is back, Force Awakens, and they're looking for the next movie. They know another movie's coming next year, and then, oh, it's Rogue One with another British brunette in an inconspicuous time era, and then people were like, oh, what's this? Is this Rey's mom? What things? And like, a lot of that was kind of jokey, but I think some people were genuinely, in the general public, like, okay, what is actually going on here? How are these connected? These characters seem kind of similar. It seems kind of similar plot. It's a rebellion here or resistance here. And I think that was a weird time. I think with this, things are more distinct now. Obviously, you're having Rey coming back. She's an established character. You have Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, Grogu, all that stuff. That's distinct. I don't think people are going to really get confused with this. I think people will know, like, okay, this is the Mandalorian movie. This is the Rey Skywalker movie. This is this other thing with James Mangold. But ultimately, like, but it does call into question. Yeah, I think I agree that, like, yeah, it could kill momentum if they don't do it right. I think if you have a cliffhanger, if like a big cliffhanger, that might need to be the next movie, or like one of the next movies is, Thrawn wins and everyone's in peril, and then you have to follow that up. If the next movie is James Mangold's movie, then that might kill the momentum, and you're gonna have to get people re-engaged with, okay, catch up. There's gonna have to be a before credits, previously on the Mandalorian movie.
So here's the thing, Ben. You use the example of Force Awakens to Rogue One.
Right.
I see people caught on with Rogue One. People figured that one out on their own. Like, I don't think that movie has suffered from people being confused by it. And I think if you ask a lot of casual Star Wars fans, what's your favorite movie of the last few years? A lot of people, perhaps if not a majority, and certainly a plurality, would say Rogue One. I shouldn't say certainly, but probably would say Rogue One. And I think like the biggest, like the point during the Disney era when there was the most momentum for me was Celebration Anaheim in 2015 and the launch of the Chewie We're Home trailer through the release of The Last Jedi. And there was a huge cliffhanger at the end of Force Awakens. Rey's standing there holding the lightsaber out to Luke. It's what you've been waiting for that entire movie. You get it in the last minute, and then you don't know what happens next. And there's a whole 2 years in between, during which a new movie comes out, and you have the better part of 2 seasons of Star Wars Rebels as well. And all that did was heighten the momentum. That's when Star Wars was at its peak momentum, because it was just things weren't being canceled yet. Things were just being announced. There was all the news was good, just about. There was the Phil Lord, Chris Miller thing that kind of signaled that things were starting to tip a little bit, and there was some funkiness with the Rogue One reshoots and everything. But by and large, people were excited. And the momentum was building because there were trailers, there were teasers, there were pictures, there were Entertainment Weekly and Vanity Fair previews. There was all of that stuff going on to supplement the fact that people really liked The Force Awakens, were really intrigued to see where it went next, and really, really liked Rogue One. And so I think the key is less like, oh, one story has to lead into the next. It's just stories have to be good, and you have to give people good news to latch onto between them. Yeah. That creates momentum.
And on top of that, again, what you were saying earlier, communication. It was explicitly communicated to the public through these massive announcements that, okay, yes, there's going to be a Star Wars movie every December. The next one, Force Awakens. The one after that, Rogue One. It's different. Then you're going to get The Last Jedi. Then you're going to get the sequel to The Force Awakens. You have to wait 2 years for the sequel. Then you're getting this interlude with these other characters that has anything to do with it. It was all upfront about that. I think as long as they make announcements and just release trailers like normal and just do this stuff and be open and honest with the public and go like, okay, here's what's going on. Just things. Yeah. I think that's where Marvel has succeeded so well. I think obviously, Kevin Feige is such a showman. They've done those grand things with, these, here's the whole movie for the next 10 years. Here's what we're doing. I'm not saying Lucasfilm has to do that. They did that one time, kind of. It didn't really work out. But like ultimately, I think just a little bit further into that territory of just like, tell us what's going on. Tell us the release schedule. It would be nice to have like, or maybe, I mean, I know they don't want to commit to a release schedule because like that puts the pressure on them. They want to be able to kind of say like, we're putting this movie in the back burner. We're going to let Taika write for 10 years, I guess. And just then maybe that movie will come out someday. But like, ultimately, it would be nice for Kathleen Kennedy to sit down and go like, yeah, this is what we're planning. It might not work out. Maybe we'll have to push something back. Movies get pushed back all the time. We learned that during COVID. Movies just change release date. And sometimes they move them up. Sometimes they move them back. It's okay to be honest with the public and go like, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is the plan right now. And we're sticking to it. And maybe it'll change, but here's what we're doing.
Yeah. And I will say I am a little bit guilty of looking back on that era with rose-colored glasses. There were, there's, like I said, there was the Phil Lord and Chris Miller thing. There was the Colin Trevorrow being fired. Like there was the beginnings of what we're experiencing now started in between Rogue One and Last Jedi. But there was still just such excitement because the stuff that had been coming out was really, really good. And people were, they were holding our attention with what's coming down the line. So I think that's the momentum story there.
Definitely.
All right. We'll go back to the Discord here. Dr. Hugh 17 says, not a question, but after hearing Dominic's dad jokes, I was compelled to drop a few Star Wars ones of my own.
Here we
go. First up, what do you call a broken wing?
Why fixed wing? I don't know.
An X-wing. Boom.
Oh.
Yeah.
An X-wing,
like EX.
Like
EX
wing.
Like an X-wing, like a wing that you used to date but don't date anymore.
That you don't date anymore, but you're kind of friends with still, but it's kind of awkward. Yeah, I get you.
Your X-wing.
I like it. Yeah.
All right. What craft do philosophers fly? Craft do philosophers fly?
Ooh. I don't know. What?
A Y-wing.
A Y-wing, of course.
Yeah,
Why? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
good. I was trying to think, is there like a I think therefore I am wing joke in there, but there really isn't. I can't make that work. That's really stretching it. All right. There are creatures that live in crates. They are known as crate dragons. Ba-dum-bum.
Hey.
I think the Philosopher's
Boy,
one is
oh
the
boy.
best one. I think the Philosopher's
Yeah, the Y-wing.
that's
Love
the
that
winner
one.
there, Hugh.
I like
think,
that. Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
good.
the winner. But yeah, those
I
that's
like
good.
how we're becoming a dad joke channel. I like
yeah,
that. I like
that's
that rebrand that we're doing right now.
yeah. We started off as a Star Wars channel, then we became a pancakes channel, then an Oreo channel, and now we're just we're just moving into our dad joke era. I like that.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
And finally, we've got one more question from Joel Davis. This time he left it in the Discord. In your opinion, who should be the antagonist of the Rey film? In my own opinion, I think that the antagonist should be in a meta sense, public opinion. The idea that the galaxy is so tired of Jedi falling to the dark side and causing galactic wars all the time that the public is so sick of the Jedi that Rey has to convince them that the Jedi are still needed in the galaxy. Bit of an odd comparison, but it's a lot like some of the X-Men movies with Jedi taking on the role as mutants. But what are your thoughts on post Rise of Skywalker antagonists? What do we think?
I mean, we almost talked a little bit about this with our Rey movie theorizing.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's actually interesting how similar our thoughts were to kind of what Joel's bringing up here. And you know what?
Yeah.
That's a great point. I think the antagonist should be the challenge of establishing what is a Jedi, and that should be the difficult conflict of trying to, and the idea of public opinion is kind of interesting in this meta idea. I kind of like that. I would enjoy that.
Yeah. I'm sort of interested in, and this has never really been answered, but like, how much do regular people in the galaxy know about the Jedi? Like in the original trilogy, Luke and Obi-Wan and everybody seems to know what they are, but it's sort of like an idea that that was long ago and far away. And in the sequels, they kind of continue that, Luke Skywalker, I thought he was a myth, like, that sort of thing. In the Clone Wars, they kind of delve into it a little bit where we see that like public opinion turning against the Jedi, especially with the Martez sisters and their experiences on Coruscant in particular. But that's on Coruscant where the temple is, and I'm sure there's Jedi around all the time. For someone living out on
Coruscant.
Yeah.
Where are you taking them? Coruscant.
But for someone living on Tatooine or some other backwater planet, like, are Jedi basically like wizards? Like they might have existed a long time ago, but don't really like is it something that's like just sort of out of fairy tales? Or do you actually see a Jedi? And so like do the public know enough about Darth Vader and Kylo Ren and these Jedi turned evil, turned to the dark side, that they're like, yeah, the problem is the Jedi, or are they just sort of like sick of the whole concept of just endless wars? I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
I think I mean, we're talking about main characters here. Is it going to be focused on Rey? I think ultimately the story really should be focused on the PR director for the New Jedi Order and what that job entails and what they have to put up with, all the questions they have to field, the press releases, all that kind of stuff, because that would be fascinating. But what you're talking about
polling. It's all about the polls.
Exactly.
We got to figure out what's going on in the polls.
But but seriously though, like Star Wars is fantasy, obviously, and it is something that we don't take too seriously. But Star Wars, in and of itself, we like to think that yes, these stories are meant to be taken as seriously as possible. We see things, and there's a lot of themes in the sequel trilogy. We talk about what the heroes go through, what the older heroes go through, is very much like this kind of real world, like what would happen to these people if their story continued. I like the idea of like, okay, now that all these years and years and years of galactic war and all this kind of stuff, that people wouldn't be like, you have a glow stick, you're bad. I don't care what color it is. I don't care if it's red or green or yellow or whatever. You're bad news, and I don't want any part of you. And you can make sense because, like, not only did like the Empire spend a lot of time, saying that the Jedi are bad, they were also bad, and that Vader was this ghost of a villain that people were terrified of. How does the galaxy recover from that, and how does the Jedi win back the trust of the general public? And what you're saying, what does the general public even know of what happened? What do they know? I love the whole idea that the whole idea that Luke went in and he killed Emperor and Vader, and that's the story that kind of permeated throughout the galaxy. And then you have the whole thing in the other book where it's found out Leia is actually the daughter of Vader, and this whole toying with the idea that what we know as an audience, the general public does not. The general public in the galaxy is ignorant to most of this stuff, and does the identity of Kylo Ren, she's, Rey is trying to rebuild the Jedi Order, and do they know? Your adopted family, one of theirs was Kylo Ren, and all this kind of stuff. And how does that affect her?
Do they know that Rey, you are Palpatine? Is that part of it?
That's even worse.
You do a pretty good Kylo Ren. Wow, that's pretty good.
I did it for the inevitable animated series where they can't pay Adam Driver enough to show up. I'm over here.
Get Dominic Jones. There he is.
Yeah, I mean that could be part of it too. Like, it's all out there. I don't know. I think I'd rather the story be more about Rey figuring out what it means to be a Jedi than her in a PR war. And that's kind of, taking what Joel is saying to a ridiculous conclusion, which I don't mean to do, but I think that should be the focus rather than worrying too much about what the galaxy at large thinks, because I think the galaxy at large will start to have a much more positive opinion of the Jedi when they start showing up and helping them and doing good things. And I think that ultimately is what Rey needs to figure out, is what is the best way for the Jedi to help people. All right. Excellent submissions this week for Ask the SWU. Thank you to everybody who submitted your questions on Discord and with the super chats and all that. Great thought-provoking stuff as always, and a couple of groaner jokes in there as well, because why not? Why not? But I think with that, we can begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back in 7 days' time with more Star Wars discussion. And hey, Chris will probably be back then, too. Hopefully. I think Chris is supposed to be back next week. We didn't know Chris was not going to be here.
You got to find him first.
24 hours ago.
Well, the search warrant is still going, so we'll find him. We'll find him before next week.
But yeah, Chris will hopefully be back. We'll continue the discussion and have more discussion. Maybe tell some more dad jokes along the way. In the meantime, as always, don't forget to subscribe to the Star Wars Underworld on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. Subscribe there. Never miss an episode. You can also become a channel member on YouTube if you want to support the show financially. And during the shows, if you want to super chat with us, you'll be put to the top of the line of the Ask the SWU questions. And we'll get to those, and it's another way to support the show financially if you want to. And of course, join the Discord for all the fun that goes on in between shows with the watch parties and all the episodes of Young Jedi Adventures. Just all of them.
Every single second of Young Jedi Adventures, including the shorts. We watch the shorts too on YouTube.
Jeez.
Yes,
we're committed
to this.
You are welcome, man. You are welcome. Join that for watch parties, game nights, and more great discussion. Link in the description. Ben, thank you as always for hosting this week.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always. And got another question for you. What do you call an invisible droid?
R2 can't see you? Can't see 3PO.
No.
Can't see 3PO.
See-through PO.
Rupio. Damn it.
See-through PO. That's pretty good. Well done, Ben. Well done.
Not as good as the one I started with, but solid.
I tip my cap to you, yes. Make sure you follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. He will explain everything that's going on in Star Wars fandom to you. He will do that on his social media. So follow
Look,
at
I have
Hart.
truly, someone stop me. I have gone insane. I'm actually tweeting again. This is this is nuts. This is
bad.
Buckle up. Buckle up.
I tweeted so much and ended up on Reddit. Just gonna put that out there.
He tweeted so much it wound up on a different social media platform.
That's how hard he goes on his tweets.
That's how it happens. That's how it happens. All right, follow Ben at Ben Hart with no E. Anna, thank you as always for being on. What's coming up on the Raeside?
So much that I can't even mention yet. But a new series of some things will be starting next week, and the announcement is coming out very
Tales of the
shortly.
Jedi. Tales of the
Yes,
Jedi.
I am personally releasing Tales of the Jedi. They thought, let's diversify from Disney Plus. Let's start airing these on various YouTube channels.
Nice.
No, but stay connected. Announcement coming soon of a new series on the channel.
Nice. So make sure you're following at the Raeside on social media and subscribe to the Raeside on YouTube to find out about these announcements, find out what the new series is going to be. You can follow me on social media at DominicJ25. I don't tweet much, but I do Instagram a fair bit. So follow me there and check out Hawk Off Press. No new posts this week, but we should have a new one up next week. So DominicGJones.substack.com. Subscribe there to read my writings that arguably go on for too long. Arguably. Check that out. And follow Chris at Seekell. And follow the Star Wars Underworld at the SWU everywhere, but especially on Threads. All right, that is it. That is going to do it for this week. We will see you next week. For Ben, for Hannah, for Chris, for all the wonderful people at the Star Wars Underworld, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.